Hey guys, it's Aiko. I'm an American English pronunciation coach and business coach based in Hawaii. So I am usually focusing on pronunciation, right? I don't really teach the speaking skills. So I invited one of my friends who focuses on speaking skills. So Kaori, thank you very much for coming to my show.
Thank you for having me.
So would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaori, and I live in Portland, Oregon. Oregon is on the west coast of the United States, above California. And just like Aiko-san said, I focus on speaking and communication, conversation skills using English. So I coach Japanese students who need English for work or their life, but they really need to polish their speaking skills or conversation skills. So I coach those people.
This is interesting because so we're in the same field, but I choose pronunciation because I had a hard time with pronunciation. I struggled with my pronunciation. And this is why I want to teach other Japanese how to improve their pronunciation, right? Because that's something I understand them. So you're focusing on speaking skills. Can I ask you why? Your why and passion?
Same reason with you. I just struggled a lot, especially I wasn't confident with my speaking skills, and my conversation with local people always stopped after 30 seconds. So I struggled a lot, and it was really big thing for me. So I worked on it really hard. And once I overcame it, I thought this is really life-changing. If everybody uses English for their life, this is really life-changing. So that's why I'm teaching this.
I love that, the word life-changing. So what was one thing that changed your life in terms of your speaking skills?
Oh, what changed my life? I think that in the past, I try to keep the conversation going, but because I wasn't confident with my English and I didn't want to make mistakes, I didn't want to, say something. I didn't want to say something that's awkward or some people maybe don't understand me or something. I was very in a protective mood, right? So I made everything short sentences. I wanted to talk, but I kind of made everything short and summarize and just talk faster or something like that. I didn't want to make mistakes. So I used to talk like that. And of course, my conversation stopped very quickly because I was focusing on my English. I wasn't focusing on the conversation itself. So I think one thing that really changed for me was my attitude towards the conversation. I was more able to engage in the conversation, feel connected with the speakers instead of worrying about my English.
That's so beautiful because I was so self-conscious about my accent before. So I didn't really enjoy talking with people because I was so conscious and I was so worried about what they would think about my English. Oh, Aiko doesn't speak English, something like that. I was so worried about that. So I guess that was for me too. I changed my perspective from worrying about my accent to wanting to know about them. So I feel like you went from one side to the other. All right, so that's so cool. So you said that you're gonna do this 3-day lesson for the first time. So I want to make sure that my audience can take this opportunity if they want to improve their speaking skills. So would you please talk about your 3-day lessons?
Yes, thank you. So in this 3-day lesson, I'm going to teach how to improve your speaking skills. And I'm going to focus on 3 things. So day 1, I would like to have a training with you, the audience, to be able to speak longer instead of making everything short. Try to keep talking, try to keep speaking. Don't try to stop just because, you're used to it. Just try to speak longer. That's the day 1. And then day 2, I like to focus on how your English sounds understandable. I want them to focus on how they sound. That's the day 1, because even if you can speak your English fluently, if it sounds like very hard, difficult English that people have hard time understanding, then I think that's the problem too. So it needs to be really understandable. It shouldn't confuse English speakers to understand our English, right? So that's the day 2. And on day 3, I like to go deeper into the speaking skills. I like them to focus on how they can speak English so that they can feel more connected. Because I notice a lot of my students are so good at speaking about something simple, then they struggle. I always say the same thing. I can talk about this much, but I can never talk about this much using English. I can't speak like this. Like I can't speak like Japanese. I have so much limitation in English. I can't express myself. So on day 3, I like to focus on that part. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thank you. I noticed that like to me, like when Japanese people speak in English, I even have a hard time understanding them. And I'm used to Japanese accents. I'm Japanese, so I came from the accent, right? But I have a hard time understanding them. Like yesterday, I was attending a meeting where Japanese people were speaking English, and then I understood maybe like 60%. Maybe 65%. And sometimes like they say some phrase and then I'm like, what is it? What is it? I had to really, really think from the context. And it was really so hard for me to understand. So imagine if people don't know Japanese accents. Like I know Japanese accents really well and I'm Japanese. I came from Japan and then I maybe understood 65% yesterday. I'm wondering how native English speakers who don't know anything about Japan and the Japanese language or the Japanese culture, I'm wondering how much they would understand. So it's very, very important to think about the listeners. So I really like your perspective of like, think about what they receive.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. So how can people attend your 3-day lesson? Do you have a link for it?
Yes, I have a link for it. So if you click on the link below, you can check out the lesson. First, I would like you to send me the recording of your English. And after I receive it, then you can join the lesson. So please send an application and along with your recording as well.
Okay, well, sounds good. Thank you. Do you have time to share one tip for the audience who is watching this?
Yes.
Do you have maybe like something that you're going to talk about in a 3-day lesson too, but do you have one thing that Japanese people can start doing to improve their speaking skills? What would be it?
Okay, for the first thing that I like everyone to do is just start practicing your speaking daily by yourself. But when you speak it, focus on two things. One thing, try to speak longer than usual. If you usually talk 2 sentences, make it 5 sentences. Or I always tell my students, when you talk about something, talk at least 3 sentences so that you will used to it. If you always speak only short sentences, it's okay for a quick conversation, but when you really need to speak longer, like in a meeting or when you give a presentation or you have to explain about something to your friends or customers, you're going to have a hard time because you're not so used to it and you feel panicked and then suddenly feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I don't make sense, right? So it gets pretty scary. So try to talk longer when you speak so that you can train your brain, connect your brain and mouth, together. And then the second thing is, make sure your English is understandable for English speakers, not Japanese speakers or yourself. Make sure every single sentence, every single word you say makes sense and it's understandable sounds-wise, like pronunciation, but also if people can really understand your English, sometimes it could be like a grammar error, like a critical error. They might misunderstand. For example, my students had a hard time using present tense and past tense, and I thought they are totally talking about past, but then it was actually the present or future. And I got really confused listening to his English one time. So make sure that English speakers can understand. So those 2 points, I like them to focus.
Wow, thank you. And especially for the second point, you need someone. Like you need feedback from someone because when you're speaking English by yourself and practicing pronunciation, you don't know how you're doing. You don't know if your pronunciation is understandable. So that's good so that people can have a person like you who will tell them and then, if it's understandable or not coming from a third person's perspective. So that's really important to have someone like this.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. So thank you, Kaori, for sharing your 3-day lessons and also additional tips for the audience. So do you have anything to share before we end this recording?
No. But keep practicing, keep practicing. A lot of people think that it's okay if they use English for work or with their families or friends, but I don't think that's enough. It really makes a huge difference if you practice pronunciation too and speaking skill as well. We need to practice by ourselves.
All right, great. Thank you, Kaori, for coming to my show and sharing your tips.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, bye.